which I know you'll all see and be able to experience for yourselves. I'm sorry I can't be there with you all in DC in person. So grateful to you all for your support during the last several years. Coming to DC and meeting many of you at UCA, gosh, now it's several years ago, was one of the formative and really touching and invigorating parts of my presidential campaign, where it was early in the campaign, not that many people were paying attention to the Chinese American or Asian American candidate, but many of you decided to believe in me, support me, and help take vision for a different set of solutions to the rest of the country. And Jane did more than that. Jane not only campaigned, but also documented her journey, documented the journey of, gosh, I mean, there are probably hundreds of people in the film. The last several years has been a really hard time for our community, for Chinese Americans, for Asian Americans. Certainly, I don't think any of us could have imagined what would happen starting in 2020, where the energy directed towards Chinese Americans has become really dark, very difficult, sometimes even dangerous. There are people in our community that don't feel safe walking the streets. I know some Asian women, including family members of mine, try to look less Asian when they go outside, which is a real distressing sign of where we are. But that makes the work that UCA is doing and the work that we're all doing, and I believe even the message of this film, all the more important. That we need to let people know that Chinese Americans are Americans, Asian Americans are Americans, we're all human beings, we all have the same hopes and dreams for ourselves and our families. I apologize I'm doing this from the car, but the time got moved on me. So people can at least vouch for the fact that, that originally was supposed to be at another time. I was going to be in a stationary environment. So I hope you all have a wonderful time this weekend. Again, I'm there in spirit, and I hope you enjoyed this film half as much as I did. Who knows? Maybe some of you might even find yourself in the film. If not literally, though some of you are in the film. Then certainly spiritually or figuratively. So grateful to you all for being able to come together in such a great organization and a great environment. I don't know if this is an environment where I could take questions about the film, about Jane, about anything else, but so excited to be able to help commemorate this occasion with you all.
Yes, thank you so much, Andrew.
I just want to ask, how many questions are you able to take?
I'm in the car for another 15 minutes, so I've got some time.
Okay, so
raise your hand to me if you have any questions.
actually, I'm biased, so I have to ask a question first. So what was your favorite, I guess, graphic or like meme that was made during your presidential campaign?
I really liked my face on a $1,000 bill. It could be blown up. The first time I saw one, I was like, wow. And it actually had the kind of a clear, punchy message immediately. So that was one of my favorites for sure. I think there's a picture of me carrying the blown up version of that bill.
There might be an echo, but this is Jason right here.
Hey Andrew, how's it going? Jason Jang over here. Question for you. What would you say was the most surprisingly fun part of your trail?
One thing that gave me a lot of joy unexpectedly was crowd surfing at the event in California. I don't know if any of you were there for that either, but it truly was spontaneous where people were so excited to see me, but I knew I could go. And so I said, like, how can I interact with as many people as possible in as short a time as I have? And then I said out loud to myself, sort of, I was like, oh, I should crowd surf. And then the people around me just took that idea of like crowd surf. And I looked, and then someone actually made a surf with their hands, which is sort of the universal sign to get boosted. So I was like, oh, sure, if he's willing to get his hands dirty to boost me, I'm spontaneous expression of joy and enthusiasm. And looking back on that, I'm so glad I did it. And if any of you were there, thank you for making sure I didn't hit the ground. Again, it's like both a metaphor and literal.
Hi, this is Sam. What do you think about a sequel focused on the upcoming events of the Forward Party?
I think that would be a tremendous idea. And one thing I will say to you all who are gathered, so the Forward Party, some of you are familiar with it, some of you are less so. Some of you are kind of curious about the idea of the third party, others of you are like, hey, how can that work? This third party is going to work. First, let me say that I think that a third party is a very, very natural home for Chinese Americans and Asian Americans. So for Chinese Americans right now, one of the only things that the two parties can agree on is trying to compete on who can be tougher on China. And that ends up throwing Chinese Americans under the bus in many different contexts. We have gone from being a community that voted essentially 50-50 Democrat-Republican to a community that's gone more almost 2/3 Democrats, 1/3 Republican. But the fact is we're not a priority for the Democratic Party, and I think people can sense that. But in a two-party system, you don't have a choice. A lot of people feel like they don't have a choice, and they also feel like we don't have a choice. They'll be like, hey, what are you gonna do? So if you had a more genuinely representative multi-party system, then you would have Chinese Americans be able to have a real political voice at a higher level. Right now, Asian Americans are the most underrepresented political group in the country by the numbers. We're something like 6% of the population and less than 1% of the elected officials. And one of the reasons for that is the two-party system. One of the reasons for that is that we go through these closed party primaries that are not a good fit. And if you are someone who can get certain people excited about you, but less than 50% in a party primary, then you have no voice. So first, let me say that I think that this is a natural movement for Chinese Americans. We also have some very, very exciting announcements at the end of the month that I will spill the beans to you all. But we're going to make a series of announcements at the end of this month, as well as launch a national tour in September that will state that the Forward Party is now the third biggest political party in the country by resources as of the end of July. And we're going to get a lot of press around this. We're actually combining forces with an offshoot former Republican group. So people think of me as a former Democrat, which technically I am, and these other people are former Republicans. So it's going to be this great big tent, positive, unifying movement that's going to include people who are fed up with the two-party system. And I think this is going to be a very exciting home for Chinese Americans and Asian Americans. So to the question, I think it would be tremendous to document some of this journey because the tour is going to be dynamite. There's going to be a national convention a year from now, the first ever Forward Party national convention that you're all invited to. We should certainly film that. Politics, but this vision is something that tens of millions of Americans are waiting for, and seeing it grow like this, it's awesome. I'd certainly love for someone to catalog and document.
I'm a third-year law student at Washington University, and I noticed that the idea of UBI was your core tenet during the last presidential campaign. But for these 2 years, I think we have seen the bad consequences of a lot of free money and easy money, a lot of inflation. I wonder, does the current situation have changed your perception about the UBI, the feasibility of UBI?
Thanks for the question, Alan. Congrats on being in law school. First let me say that there's been a ton of money printed, and the vast majority of it was not in the form of cash relief or money in people's hands. Most of it went directly into the financial system. And so I do feel bad that we've, frankly, in my mind, squandered an opportunity. So UBI has different forms. one form you could imagine it taking is something like this enhanced child tax credit that took place for most of last year. And 200 economists looked at that and said that we should continue with that sort of policy because it alleviated poverty for billions of American kids. The money went straight to do groceries and school supplies and the rest of it. So that's something that's a cousin to the policy I proposed that I'm still very enthusiastically in support of. But one thing I will say is that though Andrew Yang is for universal basic income, there are a lot of people that are joining the Forward Party that are not for universal basic income. What they are for is a positive unifying movement that can help fix the American political system and help see to it that we aren't held captive, that we have a real voice. So it does make me sad though, because it's sad that we weren't able to take advantage of the opportunity we had.
Increase anti-Asian crime and hate, and then we're waiting for government, we're waiting for police to protect us. Passing the laws is taking forever and never happens. And I look at the recent incidents of the Texas shooting. If you wait for police to take action, protect, nothing will happen. If that's the case, why not advocate Chinese Americans, or especially Chinese men, to take up the arms, or they support the gun rights, to own gun rights, to support yourself, to protect yourself, to protect your family. By doing so, number one, you can immediately protect your family, protect yourself. And then number two, that for the Democrats, they have pay attention to you because now they're afraid of losing a big component of this so-called guaranteed Democratic Party and supporters. And then on the other hand, for the Republicans, they'll look at, wow, now finally Chinese citizens realize the importance of owning the gun rights because after all, owning the gun, the Second Amendment right. And then you are American citizens, you should enjoy this right and own the gun as your native constitutional right. So if you are doing so, now number one, you can protect yourself. Number two, Democrats will look at it differently. And number three, Republicans will look at it. Both parties will embrace you and welcome you or support you or fight for you as a constitutional party. So what's your point in this regard, owning the gun or supporting the gun rights in Asian Americans, Chinese Americans?
It's great to hear from you. You should know that the Forward Party Texas Convention has already been scheduled for Houston, in your town, on September 24th. So you should go to Forward Party Texas and check it out. I'm completely comfortable with Chinese Americans pursuing their Second Amendment rights to own firearms, because at this point, all Americans are allowed to own firearms. And if you want a firearm, I'd say from our community, you're going to be able to get one. Because the rules that are on the books right now make it so that just about anyone can get one. And some of the rules that are on the books are trying to make it a little bit more difficult. On a personal level, I will say that I'm not sure, or actually I would say, like, I do not believe that arming families is going to make people safer statistically. Statistically, you're more likely to have a mishap or something regrettable happen with like a child than you are actually, fighting off an intruder. But if someone wants to buy firearms under the current the system, they should be able to, and Chinese Americans, I have a very strong feeling we'll be able to enjoy that right to the highest levels because we tend not to have criminal records and a lot of other things that will keep you from it. And I completely agree with your feelings that we should make it so that the other parties don't take us for granted and feel like they have to fight for our votes. I'm enjoying this so much, I'd love to take one more question. I think Fulton said there was two, but let's make it three. I operate threes.
I'll just go call and ask last question.
Hi Andrew, I'm Frank Yin and I am 15. What is one piece of advice for young people around my age?
Well, Fulton, the thing I would say to a young person is to try and do some things that make you uncomfortable early on because it'll stretch you and make you more resilient. The single biggest things that you want to develop as a young person are resilience and adaptability because There are going to be a lot of twists and turns. You're going to eventually make a college decision and then a decision as to what to study. And they're all going to seem very, very important. But it's much more important that you're the sort of person that can make the best out of different situations. On a personal level, for me, I did some things when I was a teen that are almost funny now. Like I tried out my basketball team and didn't make it, and that was deeply uncomfortable. I sold knives door to door, and that was deeply uncomfortable. I was a busboy at my local Chinese restaurant, and that was uncomfortable in different ways. In that way, it was actually, and don't judge me for this, but the cups that came out of the washer were super hot, and I had a hard time handling them without them cooling down, and the other the other workers just laughed at me and were able to handle them because their hands were somehow calloused or immune to it. So do something that's going to push you a little bit further, and then as you get older, you'll be able to look back on those experiences fondly, no matter what. To introduce James' incredible film, My Aunt Getting Diarrhea. I know you're going to love it. And have a wonderful time in Washington, D.C. Hopefully I'll be able to catch up with you all in person soon. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.